Hey there, everyone, and welcome to Pour and Explore, a wine, food, and travel podcast. I'm your host, Nick Elliott, the wine guy. I'd love to be your go-to guide for all things wine, food, and the amazing places they take us. Here on Pour and Explore, we'll sip, savor, and wander through the exciting world of wine, discuss incredible cuisines, and uncover the stories behind unforgettable destinations. Each week, I'll bring you lively conversations with wine experts, chefs, travel pros, and fellow enthusiasts. We'll share practical tips, hilarious tales, and plenty of inspiration to fuel your next adventure. So grab a glass, pull up a chair, and join me as we pour, explore, and celebrate the good life. Let's dive in. Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to Pour and Explore, the show where we sip a little smarter, we travel a little deeper, and we eat like locals wherever we go. I'm your host, Nick Elliott, the wine guy, and today we are taking a closer look into something that's been growing in importance, not just in wine, but in everything that we consume: sustainability. Today, we are diving into the world of eco-friendly wine, what it means, what to look for, and how you can support vineyards that are doing good for the planet. From a former winemaker, I want to tell you what it means to be eco-friendly, to drink green wine, to drink with sustainability, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to break it all down for you, from organic to biodynamic, from sustainable to natural, and we're breaking down all the buzzwords and uncorking what's really in your glass. If you've ever wondered what the difference is between natural and organic wine, or whether biodynamic practices are just moon magic, this episode is for you. So let's dive in. Let's set the stage. Viticulture, or grape growing, has a massive environmental footprint. Water usage, pesticides, monocropping, soil depletion, all of these things can harm the environment. But wine is also uniquely connected to the land. If you've heard my episode on terroir, you'll learn all about how exactly it's connected to the land and how we celebrate that. Wine best expresses itself through where it comes from. And more producers are realizing that to make great wine, they need to take care of the earth in which it grows. Climate change is also making this kind of urgent. I gotta tell you, it's kind of urgent. Rising temperatures, shifting wine regions, harvest dates are creeping earlier, and weather events are getting more extreme. Sustainable winemaking isn't just a trend, folks, it is a necessity. First up, let's talk about organic wine. Organic viticulture means no synthetic pesticides. I'm going to put a highlight on that word, synthetic. Pesticides, herbicides, or fungicides in the vineyard. Everything used to manage pest and disease in a vineyard, which they all have them, must be approved for organic agriculture. Now, in the US, a wine labeled organic must be made with organic grapes that contain no added sulfites. No added sulfites. In the EU and other regions, organic wines can have small amounts of sulfites. Sulfites aren't necessarily bad, and you've heard me talk about this as well. Sulfites aren't necessarily bad. They are a preservative. They are what protect wine from spoilage, and that is a whole other episode. When you're thinking about organic, look for certifications like USDA organic, EU organic, or there are some individual certifiers like EcoCert out there that you might find on a label as well. Taste-wise, organic wines can be super expressive, absolutely, but they're not always wildly different. It is about the farming and a little bit about style as well. So let's move into biodynamic wine. Biodynamic wine, this one gets a little mystical. Biodynamic wine is organic with a twist. Biodynamic growing is based on the philosophies of Rudolf Steiner, who saw the farm as a living organism, the entire farm, the entire vineyard, the entire property. Biodynamic growers do follow lunar and cosmic calendars. They use natural composts, teas, and they treat the vineyard as a self sustaining ecosystem. Think homeopathy meets agriculture. That's a great way to put it. There are some formal certifications like Demeter or Biodivin. Some of the world's top producers are biodynamic. And you've probably heard me say a lot of producers in the world do grow organically, hitting back to just a minute ago, but they may or may not be certified that way. So, in the same way that they might be growing organically, but not being certified as organic because it can get expensive, similarly, you can have wineries, vineyards that are producing their grapes biodynamically, but are not certified as such. So that's an important distinction that you want to think about and, more importantly, ask about when you are purchasing your wine, if these things are important to you. So, whether or not you believe the spiritual side of things, biodynamic farming often leads to healthier soils, stronger vines. And the wines, they're often very vibrant, complex, and full of life. So, something to definitely try if you've not had the opportunity to do so. Let's talk a little bit about sustainable wine for a minute. This is a broader category. Sustainable wine can include organic or biodynamic practices, but it also includes really important things like water conservation, renewable energy, packaging decisions, labor fairness in the vineyard, making sure that everyone's getting paid a living wage and being taken care of, making benefits, this, that, and the other. California here has a huge program for sustainable winemakers. We encourage that here in California. New Zealand, Chile, South Africa also have standards when it comes to sustainability. So sustainable wineries might recycle water. They find ways to reduce emissions in the actual farming of the grapes. They could use solar power, again, paying workers living wages, and reducing the bottle weight to lower their shipping footprint as well. So little things like that, every little thing that we do from the day that vine is planted in the ground to the day that it arrives on your kitchen counter. Sustainability is thinking about all of the steps and how to make less of an impact on the world. That is what we're trying to do. Now, on a side note, when I was making wine up in Monterey County, it was really, really important for us to grow in a very sustainable way. We're growing grapes on a ranch that's been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, a working ranch. And this is our family legacy as well. So we want to make sure, the things that we're doing today are not affecting what we'll be able to do with the property years from now. So it's really important to think about that. And good business people are going to think about the future every time. This is where wine meets ethics. And wineries are looking at the entire footprint of the property, not just the vineyard. All right, let's talk about this thing that you hear a lot about. What the heck does it mean? Yada, yada, yada. Let's talk about natural wine. Natural wine is a bit trickier. It's trickier, and let's put a line under this one. There is no legal definition of the word natural. So, what does this mean? Natural wines can be organic or biodynamic grapes. No additives. What the heck is that? Additives like sulfites, additives like sugar, additives like water, yada, yada, yada. Native yeast fermentation. Go listen to my episode on fermentation from a few weeks back, and you'll learn more about native yeast versus yeast that were produced in a laboratory, things like that, and the differences that they can make, good and bad. These natural wines might have very low sulfites in them. It could very well be the case, but it doesn't mean that they are always low or zero. Very, very important to say. And then something that I haven't really gotten into on this show yet, but I'll talk a bit about it right now, is fining or filtration. Fining is different than filtration. So if you've ever seen the word vegan on your wine bottle, vegan means that no egg products were used in the fining of your wine. I'm going to expound a little bit more on that just so you understand what I'm talking about. Everyone knows what filtration is. We're just going to run the wine through a filter. It's going to pick out the big chunks and it's going to give you clearer wine. Now, fining is a different process. The fining of a wine is the process that is going to give you clarity in the wine, so it's less opaque. So when you're looking through, you can see to the other side of the glass. And the way that we accomplish that in winemaking is by adding a coagulant to the wine. So we are going to be adding that coagulant. I mentioned egg products. We use egg whites a lot of times. There are a few natural clays and things like that that can be added to the wine that's going to capture all of that very, very fine particulate in the wine, and that gives you a clearer wine. If you want to learn more about this process, I'll do a show at some point in time down the road about filtration and fining. I could geek out about it for a while. If you're interested, drop me a note and just tell me that you want to learn more about fining and filtration. But I digress. Natural wines can be funky, they can be unpredictable, they can be cloudy, as I just mentioned. There's little to no fining or filtration in them. Some are absolutely amazing. 100%. I've had them, I've enjoyed them, really, really good. And some are, well, challenging, let's just say. Natural wine is more about a vibe or a standard for consumption, if you will, as much as it is a product. We're talking about low intervention, let the grapes do their thing kind of wine. And it could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing. Who knows? If you want to experiment, look for producers you trust. Shop at places that specialize in natural wine, and they will be happy to guide you. And of course, that's my advice with any wine, whether you want sustainable wine, organic wine, natural wine, or just your everyday wine. Go to a local wine shop, buy from your local winery. Don't go to the grocery store. You've heard me say it before. Don't go to the grocery store because you're going to walk out with something that you may or may not like. It is what it is. Anyway, again, I digress. Let's talk about some other eco practices and talk a little bit more about shopping a little bit smarter when it comes to these wines. Beyond the categories that I mentioned, you want to look for things like carbon neutral or net zero wineries. These are things to look for as well when it comes to gas powered machinery and things like that. These are businesses that are trying to counteract the pollution that comes from machinery and so on. regenerative agriculture. I'm not going to go too deep into this, but you can go ahead and look that up. I'm not going to nerd out about that one. Lightweight bottles, as I mentioned, reducing the amount of glass that is used in the bottle, that can certainly have an effect on a lot of places throughout the distribution. And speaking of distribution, you can help save the world by just buying wine, not just buying wine, but buying wine from your local area. All 50 states are producing wine, everybody. You've heard me say this again. Every state produces wine. Go find a local winery that you love. I'm sure you'll be able to do it. And just think about the amount of carbon footprint that you're saving instead of buying wine that was made all the way out here in California and you're drinking it down there in Florida. Just throwing it out there. And when it comes to shopping, again, go read labels, support small producers. And if you're shopping, try these things. Look out for certifications, talk to the owner of your local wine shops, your local winery, and explore some wine clubs that are focused on eco-friendly producers. That's another thing that you can look out for. Great, great advice there. So, short episode today. I just wanted to talk a little bit about eco-friendly wines. There's a lot of buzz around it. I'm not sure if you know what it means. That's why the wine guy is here for you. So if you're out there, whether you're sipping something organic, biodynamic, natural, or just sustainably made wine, you know that your choices matter. And I appreciate it from someone who appreciates it as well. Eco-friendly wine isn't about being perfect. It's about being intentional. It's about understanding the story behind the bottle and knowing that wine can be delicious and you can do good drinking it or buying it. Anyway, if you enjoyed this episode, folks, please share it with your eco-conscious, wine-loving friends. Hit me up on social media. Tag at The Real Wine Guy. You'll find me on Instagram. You'll find me on all those places, TikTok and so on. And share with me a natural or organic and eco-friendly wine that you're in love with. I would really love to learn more about it. And please, please, please subscribe so you never miss an episode. You'll find me all over the podcast world. I appreciate your time. Until next time, everybody, keep wondering and wandering. Have an awesome day.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Pour and Explore. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your stories, and your questions, so you can drop me a line at cheers@thewineguy.vin. That's cheers@thewineguy.vin. Or let's connect on TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook. Grab those links on my website at thewineguy.vin. Until next time, let's keep wondering and wandering. Cheers, everyone.